I never thought this house would become the place where I had to hide a camera to watch the people I still called family. A tiny camera, no bigger than a matchbox. I slipped it into the crack of the old bookshelf in the living room. That shelf used to be my pride. A lifetime of teaching, every book collected, lined up neat. But since Emma and her husband Mark moved in, the shelf turned messy. Books pulled out, smudges of dust. And then, the safe key, out of place. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my study, a single yellow light over the computer screen. The camera started recording. 2:45 a.m. The bookshelf creaked. A shadow stepped in. Mark. He bent low, searching, hands shaking, sweat dripping. Though the room was cool, my heart pounded, watching him through the screen. And then he whispered, "If I can get the money, she and I will leave him for good." My chest clenched. She was Emma, my daughter, my only child, the last hope I had left after the divorce. I didn't realize how hard I was gripping the mouse. My nails dug deep into my palms. Red marks burned on my skin. Mark hunched over the shelf, his whisper echoing in the dark. Every word, a knife to my chest. I had already lost a woman when my marriage collapsed. Now, I was about to lose my daughter, to the very man I welcomed into my home. The camera kept rolling. His flashlight slid across the books. And then, the shiny key, exposed. At that moment, I knew. It wasn't just the safe being opened. It was my heart, pried apart, layer by layer. And the worst part? If Emma chose to leave with him, what would I have left? Besides four walls and shelves full of dust? My name is Christopher, 42. I used to be a high school teacher. Literature. My life was blackboards, chalk dust, and the faces of kids, half innocent, half reckless. I loved it. The way a line of poetry, a single page, could open a whole world inside a child's head. But then, my marriage broke apart. This house, once filled with laughter, with the smell of warm meals, turned into a hollow space. Not long after, I stepped away from teaching, partly because of my stomach, mostly because my heart was too torn up to stand in front of a class. They used to say, "Teacher, you plant words." But I knew I couldn't even hold on to the word family. After that, this house was only me and the books. Shelves lined every wall, living room, bedroom. I used to dust each one carefully, keep them straight, like soldiers. That routine kept me from losing my mind. I'd reread familiar lines, clinging to them, as if they were the last rhythm in a life falling apart. Every morning, black coffee, no sugar, no milk. I'd sit at the kitchen table, looking out the old window, light pushing through dusty glass, the clock ticking loud. Once, that sound was drowned out by the clash of spoons and bowls, by a girl's voice calling, "Dad." Now, it was the only rhythm I had left. Emma, my daughter. She still visited sometimes. 22 now, more grown than I realized. She was the one thread that kept me from feeling completely abandoned. When she came home, the kitchen came alive again. Another pair of chopsticks, another bowl at the table. I never showed how much it meant. I'd just sit quietly, watching her shadow on the wall, telling myself, at least I still have her. Then one day, Emma said, "Dad, Mark and we need a place to stay for a while." Mark, her husband, early 30s. I knew him only from quick meetings at birthdays, holidays. Not a bad man at first, but restless eyes. Emma said he lost his job. They hadn't found a place yet. I hesitated, then nodded. The house, once so quiet, suddenly had life again. I cleared a room for them. Emma smiled, bright. "Thanks, Dad. We won't be a bother." But the truth? I was the one grateful. Because since they moved in, the silence wasn't suffocating anymore. Footsteps in the hall, water running in the bathroom, soft voices in the night. For a man who lived too long in quiet, even noise felt like rain on dry ground. But along with that life came cracks. Mark started borrowing my car. Once, twice. Said he was job hunting. Then my credit card. Just for a while. I didn't like it. But because of Emma, I let it go. She'd look at me, eyes pleading. "Dad, he's just struggling. Trust him. Just once." I trusted. Or maybe I wanted to. But repetition leaves traces. I began to notice. Books on the shelf, out of place. One shoved in too fast. A thin layer of dust brushed aside, revealing the wooden box where I kept the safe key. I'd lived in this house over 10 years. I knew every scratch in the floor, every loose hinge. And I knew foreign hands had touched what wasn't theirs. In the days after, I watched closer. Mark asked about life insurance, about the deed to the house. Casual questions, but asked again and again. They chilled me. Emma stayed blind, believing him completely. Every time I mentioned money, she frowned. "Dad, you're always suspicious. He's not that kind of man." I wanted to believe her, but my heart, scarred too many times, had learned caution. So one night, I decided. I bought the tiny camera, slid it into the crack of the shelf. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, that maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew something was wrong in my house. From then on, I lived in half fear, half waiting. Every creak of a door made me flinch. Every time Mark walked past the hall, eyes lingering on the shelf. A sharp ache cut through my chest. This house, my last refuge, was turning into a trap. And I didn't know who was caught. Mark, the man I suspected, or me, the man too afraid of losing everything. One more time. I still remember the first night. I realized this house no longer belonged to me alone. It was late, almost 11. I sat in the living room, lamplight falling across an open book. Emma and Mark were already in their room. The house was silent, only the ticking of the clock on the wall. I closed the book, stood up to head to bed, and as I passed the shelf, something caught my eye. The Great Gatsby, the book I always kept straight, in the middle row, was pushed out, just slightly, as if someone had pulled it, then shoved it back too fast. I froze. That shelf was sacred to me. I knew every book's place. That tiny shift. To anyone else, it was nothing. To me, it was a warning. I pulled the book. Behind it, the small wooden box, where I kept the safe key. It had been moved. The thin layer of dust smudged. A clear trail left behind. My hand tightened on the book. Someone had touched it. That whole night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my study. A dim yellow lamp. The window, black with night. Questions circling. Was I mistaken? Could Emma have been tidying up? But why touch the box? Why leave the key exposed? The next morning, I tried to ask. At breakfast, while she made coffee, I forced a smile. Said lightly, "Emma, I noticed the shelf was messy last night. Did you take a book?" She looked up, startled for a second, then smiled. "Oh, I was just looking for an old novel. Is that okay, Dad?" "Of course." I nodded, hiding my eyes. Mark sat across the table, silent, eating, but I saw it. His shoulders flinched. His spoon clattered hard against the bowl. Just a second, but enough for me to remember. From then on, strange details kept showing. One afternoon, I was in the backyard, glanced through the window, and saw Mark, standing in front of the shelf. He wasn't reading, wasn't holding a book, just staring at the corner where the box sat. When he noticed me, he turned quick, grabbed a random book, pretending. That night, he asked me, "Do you have life insurance? Must be a lot, huh? An older man like you should plan ahead." The words dropped heavy in the small kitchen. I froze. Emma laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. "He's just being cautious, Dad." I didn't answer, just set the spoon down, and listened to the clock tick in the silence. The days after, my suspicion grew. I checked the safe every morning, counted every paper, every file. Not much money inside, just the house deed, insurance papers, a few old photos. But to me, they were all I had left. One day, I left the key slightly out of place, just to test. The next morning, it was back, perfectly straight, cleaner than before, dust wiped away. That feeling, like a stranger had entered your room, rifled through your drawers, and tried to put everything back. But the smell of their hands, the tiny traces, always gave them away. I tried talking to Emma again, gently. "Sweetheart, have you noticed Mark taking too much interest in the safe? It makes me uneasy." She frowned instantly. "Dad, why do you always think the worst of him? He's just worried about our future. Please, stop suspecting him all the time. You're making it hard for me." Her words cut deep. I said nothing, just nodded. But inside, a storm had started. That night, I searched the drawer, found a small box. Inside, a mini camera, one I had bought years ago for school projects. I turned it in my hand, hesitated, then fixed it into the crack of the bookshelf. A black eye, hidden behind thick spines. No one would notice? I sat back down, staring at the shelf. It felt like I had betrayed my own family. But I told myself, If he's innocent, nothing will happen. But if not, the first night, nothing. Mark went to bed early. Emma too. I stayed awake till dawn, staring at an empty screen. The second night, still nothing. Only shadows. Silence. I began to doubt myself. Maybe I really was paranoid. But then, the third night, around 1 a.m., the camera caught movement. A figure stepping into the living room. Dim light from the hall framed their back. I held my breath. They went straight to the shelf, hands searching. And then, it was Emma, my daughter. I watched in shock as she pulled the box out, held the key in her hand. She didn't open the safe, just stared at it quietly, then put it back. Before leaving, she glanced around, nervous, afraid of being caught. My heart clenched tight. Why? Why Emma? Was she doing it for herself? Or for Mark? I didn't know yet. But one thing was certain. The secrets in this house weren't just Mark's. And I, the father who thought he was protecting his daughter, was the one being left behind. I couldn't sleep after seeing Emma at the shelf. My daughter, the little girl who once held my hand across the schoolyard, who sat for hours listening to me read, now sneaking a safe key like a stranger. I asked myself, was it curiosity or Mark? That question hung in my head, heavy, like a stone on my chest. The days after, the air in the house changed. Emma avoided my eyes. Mark, suddenly too friendly. He asked what I liked to eat, where I wanted to go, even offered to fix the old door. But I couldn't forget his eyes on the shelf, the way his hand kept touching his pocket, as if checking something. One night at dinner, Mark asked, out of nowhere, "Sir, if something unexpected happened, who would this house belong to?" My spoon slipped, clattered on the wooden table. Emma jumped in, her voice strained. "Stop it, Mark." I said nothing. I just stared at him, cold enough to make him look away. That night, I found a chance to speak with Emma. I didn't want to suspect her, but I needed an answer. "Emma," I began slowly, keeping my voice calm. "You've been different lately. Is there something you're not telling me?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then quick, "No, Dad, I'm just tired." "Why did you take the safe key?" The words slipped out. She froze. Her face changed, then forced a smile. "Dad, you're watching me? I only wanted to make sure you kept it safe. I'm afraid Mark might get too curious." I looked at her for a long time. I wanted to believe, but her eyes held something else. A hidden fear she wouldn't speak. I didn't push. I knew if I pressed, she would shut down completely. But inside me, suspicion had already taken root. I knew the truth would only show with proof. So I set a trap. I had a fake key made, an exact copy. I placed it in the wooden box, coated it with a thin layer of glowing powder, the kind you only see under UV light. I emptied the safe, moved everything important elsewhere, left only an old, blank notebook. That night, I sat in my study, camera on, eyes glued to the screen. Around 2 a.m., the living room door opened again. This time not just Mark. Emma was with him. I froze. I heard her whisper, "Hurry, I'm afraid Dad will wake up." Mark bent down, took the key, slipped it into the lock. I held my breath. The safe opened, but instead of papers, only the old notebook. "What the hell is this?" Mark hissed. Emma trembled, turned her face away. I could see her eyes glistening, but no tears fell. Mark slammed the notebook to the floor. "Where's the money? Don't tell me you don't know." Emma shook her head, voice breaking. "I don't know. Please, don't force me." My heart shattered. My daughter, caught between a greedy husband and a suspicious father. I wanted to rush out right then, but my legs felt nailed to the floor. I could only watch through the screen, helpless. The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened, but inside, the storm grew. I watched Mark's hands, saw the faint glow on his finger, the powder from the key. The evidence was clear. At breakfast, I pulled out a small UV light, shone it across the table. The glow lit up on Mark's skin. He jerked back, covering his hand. "What are you doing?" Emma gasped. I didn't answer. I just looked at her, and in that moment, she understood. Tears spilled into her bowl of rice. After that, the air in the house grew thick. Mark avoided me, but I knew he was planning more. Secret calls, sneaking out at night. Emma withdrew, spoke less. Her eyes red from crying. The house, once quiet, now felt suffocating. The ticking clock, like a hammer in my head. I felt less like a father, more like a guard. Every footstep Mark made on the wooden floor, I tensed. Every time Emma walked the hall, avoiding my eyes, my chest ached. I started writing in a journal, line by line. The only way to keep from losing my mind. I wrote about the fear of losing her, about betrayal under my own roof. The pages became my outlet, words bleeding from my heart. One night, I heard Mark whispering on the phone. If we can get the house papers, we can sell, pay the debt, and leave. Never see him again. I stood behind the door, listening, hands shaking. I knew. The time for confrontation was close. No more doubt. No more tricks of imagination. This was real, and I had to face it. That night, I knew it would happen. The house was silent, only the wind slipping through the window cracks. I turned off every light, sat in my study, the computer screen glowing on my tense face. The camera was ready, inside the safe. No papers, no insurance, only one thing left. A journal, the one I had written for years. 2:45 a.m. The living room door opened. A faint beam of flashlight swept across the walls. I held my breath. Mark walked in first, Emma behind him, hesitant. "Hurry up, no one's awake," Mark whispered. I saw Emma clench her fists, her lips trembling, but she nodded, stepped toward the safe. The key slid in, click, cold, like a knife in my chest. The door swung open. Mark dove in, but instead of papers, only the old leather-bound journal, its corners worn with years. "What the hell is this?" he snapped. Emma gasped, stepped back. Mark yanked the book open. On the very first page, my handwriting, ink faded, but still clear. The day I lost everything was the day I let my daughter choose this man. The room froze. Mark's hand shook, his eyes wide. Emma burst into sobs, shoulders trembling. And in that moment, I stepped out. No more hiding behind a screen. No more shadows. I stood at the living room door, the yellow lamp behind me, spilling across my worn but steady face. "I've known all along." My voice cracked through the silence. Mark spun around, his face drained white. You spied on us?" "I didn't need to spy," I said, moving closer. Each step heavy. "Your eyes, your hands, your greedy questions. They exposed you." I stopped, looked at Emma. She kept her head down, tears hitting the wooden floor. "And you?" My throat tightened. "My daughter. You chose silence, instead of protecting this family." Her sobs grew louder. She buried her face in her hands. Mark threw the journal down, shouted, "You think you're clever? You're nothing but a lonely old man. No money, no one needs you. Nothing but four walls and scraps of paper. I'll take Emma. We don't need you." He grabbed her arm, but Emma yanked free, screamed through tears. "Enough, Mark, stop!" "I can't do this anymore." I stood still. No more words. The journal lay open on the floor, pages filled with pain. The day Emma's mother left. The days I lived alone. The nights I wrote, just to remind myself I was still alive. Mark looked at me, anger and fear tangled in his eyes. But he didn't step closer. He turned, stormed out. The door slammed hard, leaving an emptiness trembling through the house. Only me and Emma remained. She dropped to her knees, picked up the journal with shaking hands. "Dad." Her voice hoarse. "I'm sorry. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I thought if I stayed silent, it would all go away." I looked at her. In her eyes, I saw the same little girl who once hid behind me during thunderstorms. I laid my hand on her shoulder, spoke slowly. "Emma, I don't need money. This house, this safe, none of it matters. The only thing I'm afraid of losing is you." She broke down, collapsed into my arms. I held her tight, felt her fragile warmth shaking. But deep down, I knew this moment could not erase the cracks already carved into our hearts. We had only just stepped out of one storm, and beyond that door, Mark was still out there, carrying his anger and his hunger. But at least, in that moment, I still had what mattered most, the truth, and my daughter. After that night, the house was never the same. The door Mark slammed still echoed, a crack left behind, unsealed. Emma and I sat in the living room, silent. Only the clock ticked, each strike like a knife tapping against the quiet. I knew it wasn't over. Mark would be back. A man like him doesn't walk away. Emma stayed locked in her room. She ate little, slept little, her eyes swollen from crying. I wanted to ask, to comfort her. But every time I opened my mouth, the words died. So I chose silence. I cooked extra portions, left them by her door, placed a warm bottle of water, so she'd know she wasn't abandoned. Late at night, I heard her crying, muffled sobs through the thin wall. One morning, while I made coffee, Emma stepped out. She looked thinner, her voice raw. "Dad, I don't know what to do." I set the cup down, looked at her. "You don't owe anyone anything. If you're tired, you have the right to leave." She shook her head. Tears fell again. I loved him. I thought I could change him, but all he ever wanted was money. I hate him, and I pity him. I'm lost. I stayed silent. How could I tell her that I had once believed the same? That love could change someone, until it destroyed me too? 3 days later, Mark returned. He didn't knock. He stood on the porch, shouting, "Emma, open the door. I just need to talk." His voice was hoarse, a mix of anger and desperation. I opened the door, stood in his way. "You have nothing left to say to my daughter." He sneered. "You think you can keep Emma from me? She loves me. You can't change that." Behind me, Emma stepped out, shaking. "Mark, go." "No, listen to me. We just need the house papers. Then we can start over." "I swear it, Emma. I need you," Emma cried. Shook her head. "You only need money. And me. I've lost my trust." Mark froze. His eyes darkened. Then he turned to me, spat out each word. "You ruined everything." I said nothing. I only opened the door wider, pointed out. "My daughter has chosen. Now leave." He glared one last time, eyes burning with hate. Then he turned, stormed off. His footsteps slammed against the concrete, each one a threat hanging in the air. The gate shut. Silence returned. Emma collapsed into a chair, buried her face, crying hard. I sat beside her, placed my hand on her shoulder. "Dad, I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I made you endure all this. I was blind." I shook my head gently. "No, Emma. I'd rather hurt once than watch you live a lifetime in lies." We sat together. No more words. Two shadows, leaning on each other to keep from falling. That night, I opened the old journal. The last page read, "The day I kept my daughter, but lost faith in what I once called family." I picked up the pen and wrote, "Maybe family isn't always whole. Sometimes, just having one person stay is enough to keep us alive." My hand trembled, but my heart felt lighter. In the days after, Emma began to recover. She helped me clean the house, dusted the shelves, cooked simple meals. Not many words, but her presence was medicine. One evening, as we sat in the kitchen, she whispered, "Dad, I know I was wrong, but if you'll let me, I want to start over. I want to stay here, with you." I looked at her, saw no panic in her eyes, only resolve. I nodded. "This house will always have a place for you." Emma smiled, for the first time in weeks, a tired smile, but real. We never spoke of Mark again. We didn't need to. What had to be said was said. What had to be lost was lost. One afternoon, as we sat in the garden, a breeze passed through, and I realized not every crack can be sealed. But if you accept it, sometimes a crack becomes the place where the light gets in. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Maybe Mark will come back. Maybe Emma will change again. But right now, in this moment, with my daughter beside me, I still have enough reason to go on. A week later, the house was quiet again, but not the suffocating silence from before. This one felt lighter. It had a breath, because Emma and I were still here, together. We didn't talk much. I read. She sketched. Something she used to love as a child. Now and then, she'd look up and ask, "Dad, do you want coffee?" Simple words. But to me, they were the most precious gift. One afternoon, while sweeping the yard, I heard a knock. I opened the door. No one there. Only an old book, my journal, lying on the step. I bent down, picked it up with trembling hands. The leather cover. Still worn, still mine. But inside, a new page. Not my handwriting, Emma's. I still have a place to come back to. That was all. I sat down on the step, clutched the journal. My eyes burned, and in that moment, I knew she had chosen to return, not just to the house, but to me, her father. That night, I placed the journal back in the safe, but I didn't lock it. I wanted it open, so whenever Emma needed, she could read it. And know, every word was written with a love that would never run dry. As night fell, I sat in the living room. The yellow light washed over shelves that were finally free of dust. The clock ticked steady, but it no longer sounded like emptiness. It sounded like a heartbeat. I poured myself a cup of coffee, took a sip. Still bitter, but not bitter alone. Because when I looked up, Emma stepped out of the kitchen, holding a small pillow, smiling faintly. "Dad, can I sit with you?" I nodded. We sat on the couch. No words needed. Her presence was enough. In this life, I've lost so much. A wife, a home once whole, the illusion of a family without cracks. But tonight, with my daughter beside me, I realize something. Sometimes, keeping just one person is enough to have the world. I closed my eyes, listened to the soft wind slipping through the window, and I smiled. Maybe tomorrow Mark will return. Maybe the wounds will never fully heal. But I'm ready, because I know I still have a reason to keep going. And that reason was sitting right next to me, silent as breath, but strong enough to hold me steady through every storm.